just want to talk about really what the problem that we're talking about today. And that is lots of content that you're helping to create that's coming down the ADI network and is being kept and stored. But you have the problem of how do you, often as clubs and as federations and broadcasters, get at that material. And we've heard before, there's the problem of moving and transcoding and re-encoding and the problems that that brings about. So what we're here to talk about really is a solution that combines the ADI network and something called the Adobe Anywhere platform. The Adobe Anywhere platform is a way that you can access your content, really as the name suggests, from anywhere, but specifically on the ADI network, from places you've never been able to before. So that might be in the Stadia itself. It might be in your production offices. It might be really anywhere that you can get a connection into the ADI network. You can access and manipulate and edit, log, do special effects with that video content without ever moving that content. We're also going to go through some workflows today. So we're going to look at that editing workflow. We're also going to look at the logging and the way that you can log content, because as Bill said, in a world where we've got much more content, if it's not logged effectively, it's not much use. But again, doing that without sending your people to where the files are or sending the files to where your people are. So we're going to go through that workflow, start with the editing, then move on to the logging. We have a setup of us here and some colleagues in a remote location. And that's really what I'd like to talk to you about. And to start that off, my colleague, Michael Coleman, who's Senior Product Manager for Adobe Anywhere.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so a lot of the trends that have changed the way we consume media are now giving us the opportunity to change the way we produce media. And this is actually a really exciting thing for Adobe. That's one of the reasons why we started investigating the technologies that led us to create this product called Adobe Anywhere. Now, we started working on it a few years ago, but what we ended up with today, after consulting with our customers and working through this, is a collaboration platform that allows groups of video editors to work together regardless of where they are and regardless of where the media is. Because one of the things we noticed in this file-based workflow world is the files are just exploding, and we left ourselves with the problem of getting things from one place to another and accessing it. So we're trying to remove that to disintermediate the moving of the files from the actual manipulation of the content. And that's what we're starting with. So I'm going to give a quick overview of what it is, and then I'm going to go into a demo that Matt mentioned. We're going to have a multi-site demo. The first thing we focus on with Adobe Anywhere is the ability to get to your high-resolution media from wherever you are. Now, if you think about historically, we always had to have the editing workstations located right next to the media. And that was very limiting. We couldn't move around. We had to be attached through a high bandwidth connection, and it meant time involved and delay. We developed a new technology that we call the Mercury Streaming Engine, which is part of the Anywhere platform. And what it does is it allows us to use that media, that full resolution media and sequences from across low bandwidth connections or through distant connections. And it's not a proxy system. We actually have a dynamic system that lets us take into account all of the variations in the network. And we take care of giving people access without the difficulty involved in the past. The second thing that's really important about Anywhere is the fact that we're developing a new environment for the users to feel like they're connected to the other people. And this is a collaborative production. In the old days, we used to, well, the old days meaning yesterday, we used to work with project files, and we used to give editors start project files, and it's how they'd organize their assets, and there'd be a project file for every application, one for Premiere, one for Prelude, one for After Effects. The downside to this is that these files are all single user, and you can really only access them in a serial fashion, one person at a time. And they're also very specific to one application. And when we took a step back to design the system, we said, hey, it's not just an editor finishing a project. It's an editor working with a graphics person, working with a producer, and working with a logger. And so what we wanted was something that let us bring all of the roles involved in production together in one place. And that's where we ended up with a new concept we call the Anywhere production. It's multi-user. It allows multiple creative apps and multiple devices to all access the same media. Now, you don't have to care, but it's based on a database, it's hosted, and the users don't have to care either because it's all hidden in the platform. They come to work and they do the same thing they did every day, which is manipulate content. The thing they don't come to work to do is to just move files around. The last thing we focused on with Adobe Anywhere is deep integration, and Bill touched on this a little bit. But if you think about the different roles that are involved, the editorial and the logging and the graphics and so forth, it was a burdensome process to integrate these with every step of the workflow before. What Anywhere provides is the ability for each of these applications to work with our own platform, and we present a unified API that can be integrated to all the other steps of the workflow. So these standard interfaces allow us to get to that future where systems can communicate and do automated things and do what computers do, which is do things automatically, and we can let the humans focus on the content creation. And Adobe is really, at a high level, trying to create the ability for creative people to be creative. And we did some research at the beginning of Anywhere, and we found that editors spend about 30% of their time moving files around. That's a lot of creative time wasted on a task that computers can do very well. And so we're relieving that burden and letting people get into the work they do so they can continue to create that great content. So I'm gonna stop doing slides. I'm gonna do a demo here. So today's demo is actually pretty interesting, and I think you're gonna see something that you haven't seen done before. It's a multi-site demo. We have a camera on site at Goodison Park, and through the ADI network, we're gonna be creating a collaborative editing experience. The camera is gonna be sending a live feed directly here to media storage at ADI. That's gonna be recorded and ingested here to the system, and we're gonna have a collaborative editing system between myself, or a collaborative editing session between myself and an editor on site there. Because if there's one thing I've learned building a collaboration product, is that a one-person demo just isn't interesting. So if I could, I'd like to invite my colleague Nils to come on stage with me here, but he's not gonna come on stage, he's gonna come on virtually. Say hello, Nils.
Hi, Michael.
How's it going?
Hi, Michael. How's it going over there?
It's going great. So Nils has got Premiere Pro running, and Nils, stand by while I talk a little bit about what Anywhere is, just to ground people. So this is the standard version of Premiere Pro. It's the version that you get through Creative Cloud. The big difference here in this demo, I don't have any files on my machine at all. No computer media at all. All of the video that I'm playing back here in full resolution, even HD, full screen, is actually coming from across the network. And this is actually pretty neat because I don't have to be going and getting the files. I don't have to retrieve them. I can just sign in at the beginning of the day and start working with media that exists in a different location. And one of the things we learned about editors is that if they can remember their name and password, they can use this system. And we did find that most editors can remember their name. So we're doing pretty well so far. So instead of relying on proxies to get this media to come across the network, we're actually using a dynamic engine. And so we don't have to create a separate proxy stream. We don't have to store them separately. It's dynamic. And so if I want to change resolutions, if I'm on a low bandwidth connection, I can do that. I can just lower it to 1/4 and go to that. Now, we have a great network here, so there's no need to look at it in that kind of quality. So Niels is sitting at his workstation.
So I'm just waiting for some footage to come in from here. So as you mentioned, I'm connected to the same virtual network as Michael is, and I'm able to access all the same footage. So we're still waiting for this interview to come in. But in my sequence window over there, you can see I've got some stock footage that I've started to build up. But we're all connected to the same virtual network, and we're all sharing this footage. So I've just I've pieced three files together now, and I'm ready for Michael to take hold of that and give it his approval. So I'm going to go ahead and share those changes. But before I do that, let me just cut some more footage in. And then add that to the end.
Where's the live feed?
And then I should have the opportunity to share a first draft. So there you go, Michael. That should be all yours now.
Great. So Niels and I are both on the same ADI network, and so what's nice about this is as soon as he makes his change and he shares, you notice I get a new highlighted button on my screen. It says Get Latest Changes. And if I do that, it clicks, it refreshes the user interface, but it brings me the latest changes. So I will open up the sequence called Niels Cut. And you'll see right there, I'm working on the same sequence using the same media, but all that media is located here on site so that we can be using the same media without having to move files around and so forth. So that's a lovely edit there, Niels. Why don't I add a few more things to it?
Thank you, Michael.
I'm going to reach into the archive, and now one of the nice things about having all your media in one place is it's very easy to search media. It could be a large repository, and everything could be there. I can go find another clip, and just drag it into my new shared production. Now, the nice thing about that is when Niels and I are collaborating, there's no file transfer time. The things that took us, sending files or sending drives and time doesn't have to take any time at all. It's just a matter of moments. So I'm going to just drop in another clip here, maybe trim that down quite a bit, and send it back. So Niels, I'm going to add a little bit of game footage here, just based out of the archive, and share that back with you. Okay. Added.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So if we look down into the bottom corner of my interface, there we are. That icon is lit up, so I can click that to retrieve the changes that Michael has just sent me. It's going to reopen the production, and there we are. There's the new version of that rough cut with the footage that he's added onto the end. So that's great. So in this case, though, I actually have some local footage that I want to introduce into this cut that's actually not been ingested into the shared storage network. So I can actually also add local files to this. So if I go ahead and look at some stuff that I've just earlier shot, you've got some GVs and some other B-roll type stuff. Here's some interesting footage from outside the Cavern Club. Let's have that as a bit of atmospheric. We'll drag that in. But what you'll see happening here is in this status bar up here in the corner of my interface, you can actually see the progress of that file being ingested locally from my machine. But before that's even complete, I can start to work with it and cut it into my sequence. I don't even need to wait for that FTP transfer to be complete. So there we go, just outside of the building I'm in right now, Everton 2, up at the production office. So drop that down, and that's now been added to the sequence. And then as soon as this progress indicator up here is complete, there we are. Few seconds left. I can cut some more in while we wait.
Yeah, one of the things that's nice about this is there's always. Sorry, Niels, if I'm interrupted there.
Go ahead, sure.
Yeah, so this is the kind of a case where if there's a camera on site and Niels has a card, we want to have a way to remote ingest from the field as well. So that's what he's doing. That file is actually moving from his local copy of Premiere Pro to the centralized storage here as he's working. He doesn't have to stop working to do a transfer. He just puts it on a sequence, and behind the scenes, we take care of moving that file and organizing it and adding it to the asset management system back here at the ADI headquarters.
So that should be all ready for you there, Michael. I'm just sharing those final changes out now. You should be able to pick that up.
Great, and we can see that as we go to show my screen up there as well, you'll see that I have my share button enabled again, and it'll just refresh here real quick, and I'll check out your changes, Niels. There they are. There's the extra clip. This is a little spinning logo. I'm going to add that here. I'm going to trim down some of these clips a little bit, move these in, and so forth. So one of the nice things about this system is that effects all render on the server side. So I can just add any effect. We'll add screen, and you'll see that there's that bug going in the corner, spinning around. So real-time engine does all the effects in real time, sends this stream to wherever I happen to be. I could be a remote editor. I could be an on-site editor. Basically, the whole system works just like that. Now, last thing I'm going to do here is, so this is actually an interview that's actually going on right now. This is a growing file, so this just came in. I'll trim in a little bit here. And I'm not going to do a fancy editing job. This is what you get when you get a product manager doing editing rather than a real editor. And it doesn't look like much in the end. But basically what's going on there is we've got a live clip that's being recorded across the ADI network to the storage here. It's being ingested in real time to the Anywhere system, and I'm able to throw it on my timeline, start editing right away, even before the interview is finished. And that's how dynamic the system is. Now, one of the nice things about this is that because we have so much centralized computing power in the Anywhere platform, we actually take care of so much of the work there that we can begin to target smaller and smaller devices. And if I were to pull out a phone or an iPad, these things just can't do the real-time rendering. They can't do the streaming of media. But yet we want the immediacy there. We want people who are on those devices to be able to have the same access that Niels and I had as well. So I'm going to invite Matt back up onto stage to show us the iPad app, which we can stream to just as easily. So all I'm going to do is share my changes. Added new clips.
So the reason I wanted Michael to obviously just highlight that again is obviously for sports workflows, this is a critical thing, you know, growing files that are still recording as the event's happening. Now, you've done growing files before at local events, but this is a growing file coming from Goodison back into the ADI network that Niels and Michael can carry on working on in real time. And that's something that, frankly, has never been possible in the past. So now Michael shared his changes. I'm going to come across to a very short lead of an iPad.
That's what we mean by mobile.
Yeah,
right? 3 feet.
Mobile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you could just put the if you can put the iPad up on screen. So really what we're doing here is we're looking at the power of new devices. So in the past, I worked as a director and producer for about 15 years, and most of my time was in an edit suite with a big workstation next to me. The idea of operating and working, or even just seeing video on these kind of lightweight devices, was actually quite impossible, certainly then, and actually until very recently. And that's for a couple of reasons. And tablet devices, very difficult to get video onto them, and the processing power of a tablet is pretty low. So don't put the video on and don't make it do the processing. Do it all on the server side and let the device just really receive that video feed. And that's what we've done with Anywhere here. So think about when you make an edit and you need to get it reviewed. The traditional way is you'd export your QuickTime file or any other format file, export a file, then you might FTP upload it to somewhere, or you might even burn it on a DVD and send it around on a bike. I worked on a series where I calculated, I spent £10,000 exporting viewing copies, burnt them to DVD, put them on a bike and sent them to execs around London that they probably didn't watch. And over the course of one episode, I spent 10 grand doing that. Now, that's a big expense, so we're saving money here, but critically we're saving time. And that's because when I go to the Anywhere production inside the tablet, so what you're looking at here, just to clarify, are all of those sequences, all of those clips, and all of the productions that I'm a member of. So if I go into VMT Football, I should be able to, Niels' Cut, is this
Niels'
one?
Cut, yeah.
Niels' Cut. So I can click on that, and what the Anywhere server is going to do to me is send me that edit in real time. It's not going to have to export and render. When I hit play, it's streaming now that same edit that Michael and Niels just made, including a growing file, some archive, and some footage shot locally at Goodison, plus some graphics, all being streamed in real time to my tablet. So that means that I can review this, I can check that I'm happy with it, give it sign off. And so this is an area that we're expanding. So this is really just the start. The next things we'll be doing is the ways that you can actually start to interact with this video. So that means logging this material held in an Anywhere environment, just going to hit pause, held in an Anywhere environment, but from a tablet device. Or even start to edit that content together using a tablet. But again, with Anywhere as that back end that's driving it. So I'd like to nominate maybe this sir in the front row. You have the task of telling me if you're editorially happy with this broadcast.
Save my feelings, please.
Does this meet your expectations? It does. You have very low standards.
I'll buy you a drink later. Yeah, we're good.
The point is that, you know, you can see how if you're an exec or you're a lawyer or you're somebody who's based somewhere other than the production hub, you can start to interact with this content in some interesting ways. And this is really just the start of that. So we've had editorial sign-off. We're ready to broadcast. And this is really where we're going full circle. So just to recap what you've seen in that editing process, you've seen a growing file. You've seen Michael delving into the archive to get some content. You've seen extra footage shot somewhere else, all editing without ever moving a single file. All of those files stayed here. The Anywhere server just projected them across the network. I've then checked it, and I'm happy with it, and now we want to broadcast it. So if we could bring up the camera of Goodison again, if possible. And then we have a beautiful ADI screen placed inside Goodison Park. And so now we're going to broadcast our masterpiece direct from here through the Anywhere network out to Everton. And here it comes.
So there we go. So that's live playing from the Anywhere server, content that we just brought in through a live stream. It's not even done recording. We've already edited it, and we're sending it out to the screen live on site. So a good example of how the Anywhere platform allows people to, instead of thinking about their content production linearly, to just pivot around the content, move things incredibly fast, in fact, move things not at all, and get things from the creative vision to the screen in a matter of moments.
A round of applause.
There we go.
Come on, you're a hard crowd. So this is what we were really referring to as a world first. That's a world first. That's never been done before. And that's not this just never been done by Adobe before. That's never been done before. This way of just making that content go where I want it to go without ever moving it. So those are some of the editing workflows.
Thanks.
I'm just going to move on to some of the logging tools. So we know that in the world of sport, logging is a critical thing to do, because, as we've said before, if you don't log that content, if you don't manage it and tag it, frankly, you're never going to find it again. So, again, this idea that it doesn't matter how you interact with the content, the Anywhere sort of platform is a way that you can hook all of these things in. And we should point out, Premiere we've seen, you're about to see Prelude. After Effects will have this support at NAB. So imagine you've got a great motion effects artist who's in another part of the country, or in fact another part of Europe. You can use them simply by dialing into the system. So let's have a little look at Prelude here. So if I go into opening an Anywhere production in Prelude, you can see I've got the same productions here, the same productions that I had in Premiere Pro. I'm just going to look at them essentially in a different interface. So let's pick one of these clips here. There we go. So Bill showed you earlier some of the great things that our partners at Delta Tray have done to create custom logging panels. I've done it in a slightly more simple way today. I've just made some, actually, let's pick the match here, it's a bit more interesting. I've just created some markers down on the left-hand side here, a goal, pass, save, manager, cross. These are ones that I've just simply created, but you can go really as simple or as complex as you like. So I'm going to go through here, and let's just have a look at a bit of this match footage, and I'll say pass. And this is all sort of a keyboard-driven workflow, just trying to keep it nice and quick, and mark in. And okay, so if I want to, I can go back here, mark an out. I missed something. I'm a terrible logger, it would appear. So let's put in, hits the crossbar there, for example. Come to there, mark an out. So you can see anybody can really start to do this. The critical thing is, this is being done on the Anywhere network. So imagine that you've got a bank of loggers who might be nowhere near your production base. They might be nowhere near the stadium. They might be nowhere near where your production team is. But you can have a bank of them logging. You could have somebody just logging everything to do with the midfield, everything to do with the defense. And this can all be aggregated simply by me clicking the share button. So I'm going to share those markers, markers added, back into the Anywhere production. And I'm going to see if Niels, are you still there?
I am indeed. Hello.
So if you could put Niels up on screen, please.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. So, Niels, what I've done, I have shared some markers back into the Anywhere production. And if we could bring up Niels's interface here. So, on the right-hand side is the Prelude interface. Niels is just getting those changes. And if he opens up the video clip with the football match, which should be that one there, you'll see the markers I just added are already part of that asset. So I could be logging the first 5 minutes, I hit share, someone starts to put it together. I log the next 5, share, he puts it together. So this is constant updating of that file in real time in a very, very dynamic way. So Niels will now just make a very quick highlights package from the 3 markers that I've put in there. But you get this idea. If you have a group of loggers with a very a system that doesn't require a huge investment in terms of the end user, I'm just using a laptop connected to the system, you can really start to enhance your video footage in ways you've not been able to before. So Niels, have you made your assembly?
Absolutely, I've put your markers all together, and they should be coming back your way now.
Excellent. So you see there, without, again, ever moving a file, I've added metadata, I've shared that to a colleague, and he's made a rough cut and shared it back to me. So Niels, thank you for your work today. We're going to sign off from Goodison.
Okay, great stuff.
Thank you and goodbye.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Okay, so what I'm going to show you next is we've talked a lot about working in a hyper-connected way with Anywhere. But what about those instances where actually you're not connected? And this is another area of work that we've been looking at for tablet devices. So this is something called Prelude Live Logger. If we could just put the iPad up, please. Prelude Live Logger. What this is this is a way for me to create those similar kind of templates that you saw in the desktop app, but on a tablet device. So I've made one here, and it's a little bit outdated, but it's still my team, so that's why I kept it. All of these icons I've made on here were made on the tablet device itself. So these are things that I've created using Photoshop Touch, pictures I've used, little icons I've created, such that I've got a very unique logging interface for me specific to this particular game. And of course you can pass these on and share them, but the point is you can make them yourself. The way this works is I've got a clock on the iPad, so I'm going to make the most of that. In other words, I've got a time code, a time of day time code that the iPad is generating, and it's very accurate. If you look at your watches, it's roughly 5 past 5. So that means I don't need to be connected to a timecode device in the traditional way. Now, you can. If you have Timecode Buddy or Ambient or something like that, you can connect to that timecode generator. But I haven't got that today, and I don't need it. So, and let me show you why. So I would go in here, I'd pick a team, I'd pick a player, I'd pick something that they do, and I would mark that down. And the point about this is I don't need to be in the traditional broadcast environment. I could be sat in the stadium, I could be sat here at ADI, I actually could be sat at home watching TV and logging the game that way. So again, the idea of being in a dedicated place to log a match has gone away. Really, anywhere you can see this event happening, you can log it. So I go through and again, capture these various different incidents. Now, the great thing about football is kickoff is like a clapperboard, because everything from kickoff is relative to it. In other words, there's the starting point, a passage of time, something happens, a passage of time, something happens. So every marker is relative to the first. So I've logged this particular game in a bit more detail. Let me just find this log down here. Done it a few times. It's down at the bottom here. So if I look here, you can see I've got the handshakes of the match starting, Jermaine Defoe pass, a Van der Vaart goal, celebrations, a Lennon pass, etc., etc. Captured them all on the tablet device. Now what I can do is send those back to the production base and simple email. There are 3 things here. There's a text document. So this is a document that a human being can simply read. There is an XML that might fit into other parts of your workflow. And there is an XMP. XMP is Adobe's metadata standard, but it's an open source standard. Essentially what that means is, going back to an idea Bill touched upon about open platforms, I could send this data into Prelude, which is what I'm going to do here. But I could send it into EVS. I could send it into another system in your workflow where logging was important. So we don't want to have a walled garden that you can't come into. We want our tools to work with other people's, like our partners, like EVS and others. Okay, so let me just open up a production here, actually a project. And just going to, here, I've got some video footage here, but it's unlogged. And I think you can probably guess what's going to happen here. Anyone who's logged content knows the act of coming back to base and logging it is a bind. The more you can do live, the more you can do in the moment, the better. So I've got the video content, and now I'm going to essentially associate the two together. So if I go here to the unassociated metadata panel, and I pull in the file, the log that I just sent to myself. Here we go. You can see there they all are. Handshakes, Jermaine Defoe, Rafael van der Vaart, etc., etc. Now, as I said before, if I'd had genuine timecode, I could just say, take these logs and apply them to the clips in the right places. But I didn't have that. I only had time of day. But there's a really nice way I can get around that problem. So my first bit of action here is handshakes. That's the first thing that happens on the screen, and that's the first thing that happens in my logs. So I say, just apply those clips. And what you'll see is the handshakes are here, and Jermaine Defoe's pass is within this 4-second marker, and Rafael van der Vaart's goal is about there. So all of those things that I logged on the tablet are now in the right place. So I've logged this game with minimal effort on a low-cost device anywhere that I can see the feed. And now you can do some really interesting things with it, because as Bill mentioned, one of the things that was done at Sochi was the way rough cuts are made. So Prelude has the ability to make a rough assembly. This is not editing, this is lumping stuff together. So think of those things maybe as a broadcaster where you want to put the goal roundups of the Championship, League One, League Two, or even some of the lower divisions. You want to group those together in a quick, simple, efficient way. Or some of the things we talked about earlier, like getting a package to the referees or stuff you want to use for training. You could use these workflows for all of that. So what I'm going to do here is, just going to jump across to the list view. Oops, load the clip. And I'm going to just search that metadata for goal. So there are 5 goals there. Select them all and add them to my rough cut. Oops, sorry about that. Do that. Add them to my rough cut, and with, frankly, a couple of clicks, now I've got a highlights package. All the goals put together. All right, they're a bit loose, but actually, for the amount of effort it took, I didn't log it. I simply got those markers, said, make me a rough cut of all the goals. I've got my highlights package. So you can start to see how these worlds start to collide. Worlds of hyperconnectivity, but also times when you're not connected, and how we're trying to bring all of that together into workflows that, frankly, have not been done before, and we think are really going to revolutionise the way sports production is approached, I suppose. And doing that in connection with ADI is a really unique opportunity. So just in summary, I'm going to recap what we've done today. We've had some storage here at ADI with an Anywhere server next to it. No media has moved. We've done a growing file. We've collaborated with a club just in their production office. This idea of you don't have to build dedicated edit suites. It's just a laptop. And we've worked on on very thin clients. So in other words, tablets and laptops. We haven't used big workstations. All of this comes together to really enable you to access your content that you've been involved with in ways you've never been able to before, and deliver that content to your users in ways you've never been able to before. And that's going to be good for the creative benefit and also the ways that you monetize your content. So that's the Adobe Anywhere platform in collaboration with ADI. We're going to be around tomorrow morning in one of the galleries, so if anyone wants to come and ask some more questions, we'll be there. And you're welcome to speak to us tonight. But before we finish, I'm just going to bring Michael and Bill up on stage, if you just have any questions just to finish off this part of the session. Any questions at all? Yes, sir.
Over here, so let's give the mic.
Hi there, it's Gordon Roxburgh from Sky Sports. Question we had, the system there is scaled for collaboration, say across a WAN, for example, much bigger. How do you scale that down, the Anywhere product, so that where, for instance, at the moment we would deploy an Avid Unity system or an ISIS system on an OB, such as a tennis tournament for 2 or 3 weeks, where does the Anywhere product fit into that scale of things?
So you got that? You want to take that?
You're talking about how does it scale at the small end as well as the bigger end? Yeah, exactly. So when we initially shipped the product about a year ago, we made it quite scalable to quite large installations. What we're working on now is going even further down to the entire range. So we're actually working on ways to get it to fit into essentials, get the essentials, the collaboration engine, basically into a one-box scenario. So that if you're already on site and you've got access to the media, for example, you can actually get to a very low-cost, very portable kind of thing. We imagine just put it in a single unit, put it in a flight case, and plug it in when you get there.
I mean, you've got 2 workflows, really. You've got the workflow, which is the Anywhere system is central, and the people are at the event, and they connect in. Or you turn it on your head, and you take a small Anywhere system to the event, and the editors connect in. We did some trials earlier on this year across great distances, and I should probably touch on this point. What we've found is that today the Anywhere system is incredibly robust across the same continent, and I think that's quite important for some of those people who are thinking about how are you going to maximize your content with partners who might be in continental Europe or further afield. And we found that works incredibly well. But we've actually done tests where we've gone intercontinental. Now, that there's things like the speed of light that get in the way of that.
We're working on that.
And we're working on that. We hope to have that maybe by IBC. That is a problem, but actually we've proven that that technology can work. And in that instance, on that particular test, we did take a mobile Anywhere unit to Brazil and had editors in the UK editing that content. As I say, just to manage expectation, a bit more work to do on that. But
And it's one thing just to stress is because we're kind of speaking just broad diagrams here, just to make it very real for you. The servers that this runs on, they're just standard off-the-shelf Windows servers. Basically, the collaboration hub has redundancy because that has your decision data. But the scaling and processing, you add just standard servers to it. The only thing that we do that's slightly different is we actually add a NVIDIA Kepler class GPU that we use for both processing and to generate the ultra low bandwidth streams that Matt was using here. So it's really off the shelf stuff. If you wanted to deploy this, you'd work with a systems integrator who would assess, okay, how many users do you need? What resolution of media are you working at? What's your back-end storage? Then you scale the number of the Mercury streaming engines that Michael spoke to, which are just off the shelf, bog standard servers.
But I think as well, as Sky, you have a slightly different perspective. But I think, going back to one of Geraint's points, where it works so well is for when you don't want to build a system yourself. So where you want to harness a centralized ADI Anywhere environment that you can, dial into really from wherever you are. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, listen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We mentioned at the start how important our partners are, and you're going to hear from EVS in a moment. And one of the things that Bill touched on before is this way that we integrate asset management systems into our environment, such that you could search an asset management system for the file, and when you hit play through the Anywhere system, you can just play it, which is really what you want to do. Find your stuff, play your stuff, edit your stuff. So with that, I'll hand back over to Claire.
Thank you.